Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Michael and Patty Show. I'm Michael.
And I'm Patty.
And congratulations on being a full-time co-host. I know one of our listeners that's a real estate agent has been listening since episode 1, which I suggest everybody listening to this podcast go back and do. And he was wondering how many episodes he has to listen to before you become a permanent co-host, which incidentally can be changed at any moment and you can be replaced.
And I think that works both ways. However, when someone asks, when do you become a permanent co-host? I know they're starting at the beginning, which is always the best place to start.
No, absolutely. And one of the couple things he mentioned is he'd like to hear an intro. You know, some podcasts and YouTube videos have that musical intro, blah, 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 welcome to the so-and-so show. I don't like those. I think those are dated. And I've noticed from YouTube videos and podcasts that they seem to have discontinued the usage of them because they probably do what I do, which is just skip by the first 30 seconds to a minute just to get into the podcast and bypass the intro. Wouldn't you agree?
I understand. So I'm just going to do a shout out to the agent because I'm always very appreciative when people provide constructive criticism, and we do highly value it here on the MAPS podcast. So Christian Lewis, thank you so much for your input. What he is suggesting is just a little bit of intro music to begin and end the podcast with so that while he's listening, it would create a better listening experience.
So here's what we'll do.
What?
Hum something.
I'm not humming.
The second thing Christian mentioned, which I think is an excellent idea and we'll probably do, it does have some logistical issues since we usually fly by the seat of our pants and make no preparation whatsoever. With the exception of today where you've made massive amount of notes, it's going to be tough to cover that in the short time that we're here, is mentioning what's on the next show, sort of as a hook. You know how they have a YouTube video, they say, oh, in the next video, we're going to show this. So what we're going to try to do is actually tell you what's coming up in the next episode. So these may or may not be topics you're interested in, but at least you'll know some of the stuff that's coming up. We can't promise we're going to cover it all because we try to keep these episodes short, but we'll do our best to stay on track in our absolutely completely unprepared and disorganized fashion.
Well, and I feel the best way to do that is in an upcoming episode, but not guaranteed that it's going to be the next, because sometimes we have really relevant stories happen, situations happen, and we just feel very compelled, Michael, this needs to be discussed. We need to include this. So sometimes things get pushed out, but I think it's a great idea.
Well, that was a long intro. If you're new to the Michael and Patty Show, basically what we bring you is over 4 decades, 40 years of PEI on the ground, on the street real estate experience, thousands of transactions handled combined. And if you are a Facebook addict, and as a shareholder, I can say you should be, check out our Facebook group, which is Moving to Prince Edward Island, Michael and Patty Podcast. I think there's a couple others. Ours is the best.
Well, our Facebook group is a great resource group to start. It's a foundational. If you're looking to move to PEI, looking to move or sell, it's a great place to go to educate yourself. You're not having to wait until you read questions that someone posts and then everyone answers. We provide the content. We provide Toolbox Tuesdays. You know, we have Monday, Wednesday, and Friday until we're all caught up because we have over 120 episodes to catch up with to be able to showcase and feature so that you can decide. Facebook group started the end of July 2025, so we're doing, I feel, a great job. I wish it was available when I was considering moving to Prince Edward Island back in 2009.
I was going to say, when you moved here, I didn't think they had computer systems.
It's pretty funny.
Let's get on with the first topic here. As a person, agent, broker, or business owner, what is the best thing that you can invest in?
Yes, and everyone asks all the time. Everyone asks Warren Buffett all the time, what should I invest in? What is where are things going? What should I be looking for? What should I be aware of? And I loved his answer, which I will be saying forever. So, what is Warren Buffett's answer as to what is the best thing to invest in? It's yourself. It is getting education. It is becoming aware of your skills and talents. And it's something that people are always looking outward. And here, really, they have gifts inward that they could be utilizing for their betterment.
And it doesn't matter what business you're in, whether you're in the car wash business, the accounting, the legal, the real estate business, the used or new car business. There are national conventions, typically in the US, some in Canada. There are brand conventions, there's podcasts, there's obviously YouTube, there's Audible that you can listen to books while you're driving rather than just listening to music. Or maybe you're going out for a walk. Everybody should be walking a minimum of 30 minutes per day. You can research that. It's huge. Listen to a podcast. Mastermind groups, of which Patty and I are involved with, are a great way to get together with like-minded people to make your business move along and have some other input that might be helpful. Don't wait to pull the triggers, my only warning here. A lot of people will do prep. I have to prepare. I have to have this presentation. If we've learned anything from Bill Gates was somebody that utilized the acronym MVP, which Patty told me stood for the most valuable player. In this instance, it doesn't. It stands for minimally viable product. In other words, like Nike, just do it. You can always refine your presentations, refine your data, refine your pitch, refine your video down the road. But in the meantime, while everybody else is out doing it, you're sitting there planning and not executing. Bill Gates taught us that you don't have to have the best software in the world. You just have to be the first one out there with it. And that's why he became the number one operating system, or his company produced the number one operating system back in the 80s when I got into computers with Microsoft DOS or PC DOS on the PC, and then later Windows as we know it today. So bottom line, invest in yourself. And the other thing I would probably say, and I said this to you this morning, is people put too much weight on what their local, I wouldn't even call them competitors, people in the same business are doing, when chances are they may fail on a percentile basis most of the time. I always say, look at what people are doing in North America or planet Earth in your industry to see what the leaders are doing. Look past the noise locally.
I would absolutely agree, because a lot of times, and I know you, when I first got into real estate, which I'm coming up to 16 years next week, when I first got into real estate, you were one of the early on realtors that I had sought out to meet with. And you said to look at what people are doing and do the opposite, which used to make me laugh. And I thought, is this guy for real? And I understood as time went by what that meant, because a lot of them that I thought, oh, that's maybe what I should be doing. It looks flashy. It looks interesting. And then they end up being the ones that got out of real estate because it didn't actually turn into anything, or they weren't doing it properly.
Or when they got out of real estate, as you phrased it, they went out in an ambulance in a box.
We have seen that, unfortunately.
Several times.
Yeah.
And I don't think I said do the opposite. I just said what a lot of people are doing, and that's perceived as success, if you look at the numbers, it actually isn't. So a lot of times, particularly in the real estate business, if you watch what people are doing and do the opposite, you'll probably be more successful, because it's like a bunch of lemmings, I find, in real estate. You've got one person that's doing something improperly that follows the next, that follows the next, follows the next. And the other thing you see in this business is the agents will hold the broker at such high regard, even though that broker knows diddly squat. And the requirement to become a broker in PEI is basically 0 transactions, 0 education, 0 experience. Put your few grand down, take a test, and you're in. But they figure because they're the broker, they know everything. And that's not the case either. It's only the case if your broker actually has the education, the experience, and the know-how, that you should be putting value on their word, not just because they hold a title that they bought.
Yeah, and I think when I was referring to do the opposite, you see those realtors all along. It doesn't matter what level they're at. Again, you're just referring to brokers and that too. You'll see them working at midnight. You'll see them, working at 6.
Showing building lots at 8 o'clock.
Absolutely. And that's what, unfortunately, new agents think that that's what they're supposed to be doing. So when you were saying do the opposite, because I know there was a gentleman that you used to respect when you first got into the business, and he worked long hours. In fact, I believe I remember a story where he put curtains in his office to make it feel more like home because he pretty much lived there.
His office turned into a cottage, and he was there from 5 o'clock in the morning to 11 o'clock at night. And he's one of the people that taught me to do the opposite and run your business. And this is something I've taught real estate agents. Run it like you're the top attorney in town. You're in at 7, 8, 9. You're there till 5. You shut down. The top lawyer's not sitting there at 9 o'clock at night meeting with you because it's convenient with you and he needs that penny rolling into the door. If you run your business like you are the top attorney in town or in the province or the state, your business will become that.
Regardless what business you're into, for all our listeners. Correct?
Next.
Yeah.
Don't go into foreclosure. How many times have you had that client that they phone you or the bank phones you, and this has happened to me, and said, hey, your client just tossed the keys on her desk and they're walking away from the house?
It happens, but I have a trivia question for you.
I'm sorry, the trivia episode is not today, it's the next session.
So this is an old bank term. What is jingle mail?
No idea.
So jingle mail, which we're talking foreclosures, is when the next day the bankers, people that worked at the bank would arrive and they would receive all the mail. So what they used to do was they would shake all the envelopes because jingle mail meant the person was foreclosing or they were handing in the keys, and they were always hopeful that they didn't get any jingle mail because that meant obviously a loss sometimes with the bank and a whole bunch of extra work. So jingle mail became an actual thing. They would shake to see which envelopes possibly could be keys mailed in because people were walking away.
The last thing the bank wants to see is a foreclosure. The foreclosures cost them a lot of time, money, and energy. In a lot of cases, they're taking a big loss. The purchaser typically doesn't want to go into foreclosure in most cases. Even though I did have one foreclosure, I don't think I ever told you this. They decided to go into foreclosure because they wanted to go on a cruise, and this was their vehicle to do so. And then when they came back, they rented an apartment. In the meantime, the house went into foreclosure. It never had to go into foreclosure, but they felt this is our option if we want to go on the cruise. Don't go into foreclosure. Talk to your bank. Talk to your agent. Talk to your lawyer. There's ways around it. The bank will do everything they can to try to keep you out of foreclosure. Do not think that turning the keys in is your only methodology moving forward.
Yeah.
A lot of time, and the other thing is it's going to destroy your credit rating, which of course you're going to say, I don't care. Well, you're going to care when you want to lease a car, buy another house, get an apartment, and they check your credit rating and it's 400.
Yes, and it will always stay on it. And now you've got...
Well, it doesn't stay on it forever.
You can go back, even if it's past 5 to 7 years,
but you can request that it's removed without getting into a lesson on your
Okay.
credit. But you can go in there after so many years and ask for it to be removed if it hasn't been removed automatically. Patty's very competitive when it comes to credit ratings, and she's been competing with me for years. And I would like to congratulate you on beating my credit rating by 1 last week. And I'm glad that lasted 3 days until mine was updated, and now we're tied again. Moving along, January, much to everybody's surprise in PEI, isn't a great time to be looking at waterfront properties and dirt roads. That is, unless you have a motorcycle, ATV, or a snowmobile. So I had somebody there that wanted to look at a property. I said, you can look at it. The lockbox is there. It's 3.5 miles of walking over snow, but by all means, go for it. This isn't Florida or California, so a lot of these properties are difficult to get to. Now, I have walked for miles to show properties. I've snowmobiled to them, helicoptered to them, because I knew that the purchaser was extremely motivated and would probably buy that property if we could get to it. But if it's just casual looky-loo type stuff, you might pick a better time to do that. And my suggestion would be after the frost leaves the ground in April, May, depending on how much rain we've had, because even though the snow is gone, a lot of times the frost is coming out of the ground and the roads are impossible to go down, as you've discovered, because I remember you going down 2.5 miles of road at 90 degrees to the ditch because all four wheels were spinning because the road was nothing but mud.
Yes, and I had my clients with me. This was early on real estate days, and the stress of trying to show a waterfront subdivision during this time period, it was just a terrible experience. I ended up with hives. I was so stressed out. It was a terrible...
You shouldn't get stressed out. Just use my method, and that is just make sure that there's a farm tractor or a friend to pull you out.
Well, I had no idea. Again, I had just moved here. Now, the good thing was my clients, because they had been clients for years and years and years with me after, and they did buy not this particular property, but they did end up buying a property. I ended up sharing with them my stress level because the husband sat in the front and the wife sat in the back. And he had given me a compliment. He said, well, if you were really stressed, you held it together very well. He said, because I wasn't aware. He goes, actually, I was quite impressed with your ability to drive sideways all the way down this road.
You did a great job. Let's move along here. I don't know about you, but I'm watching the social media ads and there seems to be more and more alcohol in them. Have you noticed that? Agents drinking wine, agents with a bottle of champagne, agents with a glass of beer. And I'm thinking to myself, how does the general public perceive the party-like atmosphere in the advertising, specifically with so much alcohol in it?
Yeah, and I was just going to say, when you are being the professional that is representing hundreds of thousands and sometimes millions of dollars worth of real estate volume.
So basically, when agents and brokers are constantly posting themselves with wine glasses, cocktails, champagne flutes, especially in content marketing, it absolutely sends a message. And the question isn't whether it does. The question is, what is that message? So I did some research on this just to see what the public was seeing this as, and basically what the buyers were saying is this who I want negotiating my largest purchase? A drunken souse.
Mm-hmm.
It didn't say drunken souse. It basically said that if the branding leans heavily into alcohol, some will see it as social and unrelatable. We'll see it as social and unrelatable.
And relatable.
And relatable?
Yeah.
So that's a good thing? Their drink, I drink?
Yes, well, exactly, and sometimes that's what you look for.
Others will quietly question professionalism. First-time buyers may feel it's fun. So these are some positives. High net worth or analytical buyers may see it as unserious. So there's a number of different messages it sends. To me, I probably wouldn't use alcohol in advertising.
Well, that's an example where we started saying that do the opposite. So if you see that and you're wondering, maybe that's something that I would want to incorporate into my marketing or representation of self, maybe this is one area that you shouldn't. Authenticity is so important be real. Just be who you are. Don't try to be somebody you're not. But continue.
So from the seller's perspective, are you focused on marketing my property or your lifestyle? Sellers want exposure, strategy, negotiating skills, results. If an agent's feed feels like a cocktail lounge highlight reel, the subconscious reaction can be, is your branding about me, the seller, or is it about you? I think the bottom line is keep the alcohol, not only alcohol, but you see agents advertise, oh, here's what I had for dinner. This is the restaurant I'm at tonight. Nobody cares about any of that if they're buying or selling.
That's Facebook in general. Now, I do feel, because that's the whole value of this podcast, I do feel that realtors can add value by maybe perhaps educating, especially somebody that's not from PEI, and able to say, here's a great restaurant for if you're looking for a seafood experience, or if you're looking for just a really nice steak or a Mexican or an Indian food restaurant. I feel that has value. So I wouldn't dismiss all of it. It's just all in the presentation.
So the professional optics issue, and we'll close with this because I've got a ton of stuff to go through here. Real estate is regulated. It involves a fiduciary duty, otherwise a loyalty to one side of the transaction. It involves trust accounts. It involves FinTrack, which is financial tracking for money laundering. It involves contracts with life-changing financial consequences. When alcohol is in front and center in promotional content, it can blur the line between professional and personal brand, undermine perceived seriousness, create liability optics if something ever goes sideways. And we all know, or we should know, that in Canadian law, if you're soused with alcohol, that contract may or may not be valid.
Very good point.
We've beaten that one to death.
I think you have. But a good conversation for sure, and something for people to be aware of. And if you're a realtor listening to this, regardless of where you're situated on the planet, it's something to be mindful of.
Let's talk about net closing statement when listing. Now, everybody knows they get a net closing statement when you're closing. In other words, the lawyer's going to say, this is how much the mortgage, we're going to pay this off, we're going to pay for the heating oil adjustments, propane, commissions. You'd be surprised that probably every year you've got one home seller out of 100 that can't cover the closing costs. And these people are typically cash-strapped from the beginning. And in my opinion, and maybe you can tell me what your opinion is and your thoughts on this subject, wouldn't it be a good idea, and I've done this many times, I have a spreadsheet set up, to actually go through what the seller's going to get at the end of the day in their pocket after all the disbursements or the expenses per se?
Well, an approximation, because no one can foresee 100%. This is what you can expect. But
we always go on worst case.
Well, worst case for sure. I feel and again, if you're looking to do this on your own, this is where you're going to miss out many cases, is real estate agents, if we do our job properly, and we ask the right questions and we know what questions to ask, we can help a seller avoid this from happening in the first place. And a lot don't know what are all the fees? They don't even think, Michael. They think I just have to make sure I have those pillows on the couch. And here's my price. And when are the pictures being done? That's all they're focused on at the beginning. It's an agent's responsibility to make sure that they know what the mortgage and ask the right questions so that they have an idea, or at least keep the seller grounded to what the end is going to look like. And what the end is going to look like is, do you have a mortgage? Are you selling it prior to your term? Is there going to be bank penalties? What is that bank penalty going to look like? And sometimes banks, because I've experienced this in the last, say, 6 months, where the bank would not give them a definitive, because it was a unique property, what the actual penalty was going to be. And it turned out to be quite an inflated price.
They can't tell you that they don't know because it's a contractual obligation. It's
Again,
written in the mortgage agreement.
It's not a black and white situation.
It has to be. It's a contract.
They changed the configuration of this property, the structure, which changed the structure of the mortgage. I'm not going to get into details because I don't want to give things away, but just know you should be able to get the number from your bank. This situation was unique and gray, and you know what was really unfortunate because it left the seller short at closing. So please be aware. What are your legal fees? What are your real estate fees? Part of your fees that you need to be aware of when you're looking to sell are going to be, was there fees for any repairs in that needed to be done, water testing that needed to be done prior to closing? So these are all the costs that can come into play that you should be aware of.
And HST is a big component, particularly on commissions, because it's 15% on top of the commission that you're paying. And it's also applicable to legal fees, accounting fees, water tests you mentioned. HST is basically applicable to most things in Canada, the harmonized sales tax.
Yeah.
So make sure that's on your spreadsheet as well.
Yeah. And that's something, you know what, Michael, that's a really good point. And people will say, because just listening, my thought went, well, my house isn't going to be HST applicable. And that's just where my head went. But as in listening to this, HST is applicable on all services rendered. So legal fees has HST or has taxes applied. Real estate fees, taxes are applicable. Accounting fees, taxes are applicable. So these are things that you should be aware of and not hopefully blindsided and said, I had no idea that the real estate fees had, here on PEI, HST applicable, which is 15%. And that's they need to incorporate that in.
So it spells out in our listing agreements
I
more
agree.
than once. Did you not read them, Miss
Yes.
Home Seller?
Yes.
Because I remember we had this situation a few years back where the home seller had the contracts for weeks and reviewed them with his lawyer. And then when it came time to close, he played ignorance and said, oh, I didn't know HST applied, even though I go out of my way and get them to initial the HST paragraph. But they'll play that move, and then they'll get their hot-headed lawyer to phone us and try to beat us down, claiming their home seller didn't know any of this.
And that we didn't present the contract in its entirety. But that is something that, again, when we're talking closing costs, please be aware.
And that's in your purchase and sale, too. If you fill it out, it says the commission payables as per the listing agreement and I always fill that out regardless of whether it's in a listing agreement, plus HST.
Yes.
So you're signing off for it on the listing agreement, you're signing off on it on the purchase and sale. So pleading ignorance. Oh, officer, I didn't know it was only 100 kilometers an hour here. That's why I was doing 220. He's going to say, okay, you can go. You didn't know.
Can I just clarify here? So if you are a real estate agent listening and you're doing real estate on Prince Edward Island, because you'll know the forms that we're talking about and that little section, please do not fill that out and put the the real estate fees. All too many times they'll only put their half of the fees. I've seen, especially if you're a new agent.
They don't even know what the gross commission is.
That's what I'm getting to. So please, as a buyer's agent, do not fill that out. If you're a listing agent, because you know what the real estate fees are, and you would be okay to fill it out. But as a buyer's agent, you should not ever, because it's really easy to miss that because it's in the small little section. Okay.
Never.
Well, that's because you're an amazing rock star.
Super agent.
It can happen, and I just want people to be aware.
Patty, there's nothing worse, and it typically happens to first-time home buyers because they're usually looking at entry-level homes, as I did as a first-time home buyer, to find out that you just bought a house that's basically a pig with lipstick on it, and they've hid all kinds of things that they knew everything about and stuck you, the first-time home buyer that could have spent 3 or 4 or 5 years saving up your down payment, to find out even after you've done 10 different inspections and called in everybody and their brother to find out, say, the boiler doesn't work and they're aware of it before they even closed. I think that's terrible. I think you as a home seller should be honest, because karma is going to come and get you and make your life miserable forever and ever and ever, and you're going to end up in hell. Be honest with people, because we ran across this where the home seller knew there was deficiencies. We had people that said, yes, we talked to them, we said there's deficiencies and that product needs to be replaced, whether it's a boiler, air conditioner, heat pump. They didn't do it. People move in. Bad stuff happens. I think this is terrible.
Well, and the other thing, because in your list, because again, I've come across this myself, they have all this fresh new mulch all around the flower beds that exceed the vinyl siding. And I feel that the seller was aware that there was so much dry rot and insulation hanging down. So what they did to pretty up the house was they filled all the beds around. So again, be honest, don't hide things. It is, and like you said, Michael, sometimes it is a first-time home buyer. Sometimes it may not be a first-time home buyer. It could be somebody who is, a divorcee and this is their first time going out on their own, and they've got children, and it was all they had to actually buy a house for themselves and their children and start life over again. And somebody decided to just hide and not be honest and disclose. And now this individual, these buyers, these new property owners are dealing with your mess which I don't feel is respecting the home. Respect the home. Be a steward of it. Be honest. If not, not everybody believes in karma and all that stuff, Michael, but unfortunately, I just feel you get what you give. So if you give something bad, you're going to it's going to come back.
Well, if karma doesn't get you, hopefully the lawyers will. If they can prove that you misrepresented the fact that there's deficiencies and you had inspections done prior thereto, the conveyance, and they have lawyers go after you, we know from experience that, you have lawyers go after you. Best thing you can do is cut a check because you're going to be paying out legal fees anyway. So just be honest from the beginning. I use first-time home buyers because typically they're cash strapped and they don't have another $5 or $10,000 to pop into a boiler.
So like we've said in so many episodes, disclose, and be honest.
And when you're in a basement and grandma's boxes are all put up against one wall, there's a reason for that.
Sometimes.
Because I had one instance, and they ended up in court where the real estate agent knew the basement was wet. They told grandma, it was actually their grandma, to stack all the boxes against the wall. The purchasers move in. They find out that wall is leaking like a sieve, turned into a lawsuit, and grandma had to end up in court testifying.
That's terrible.
With her walker. And she tripped going up the stairs to the courthouse and hit her head.
Yeah, see, that's terrible. And that's terrible.
Well, that didn't happen, but
okay.
It could.
But to have an agent, and again, family, you have to be very mindful of your family within arm's length of that property, whoever your client is. But to have an agent tell somebody, regardless of who they are, to hide something, and then they have the seller, because they also had to make the conscious choice to listen and hide it. It's just bad. Like, just don't do it.
Grandma was kind of, how would you put it, dishonest.
Maybe it was a family gene. I don't know, but just regardless of the dynamics, just be honest because it's not fair.
As you said, disclose. And, which brings us to our next topic, what documents should I as a home seller include or offer to the listing agent to be attached to the listing? The answer to that is everything. If you have a survey, plot plan, deed, appraisal, home inspection, water test, septic, pumping, receipts, give them all to your agent so we don't have to play Columbo, which for those of you that don't remember the show, he was an LAPD homicide detective, looking for these documents which you have on hand, which we're going to need down the road.
So which side are you on now? The listing. So you're the listing. So you're asking for the buyer's home inspection?
I'm asking for everything I mentioned, and then in the notes, which Patty is reading from, I'm also suggesting a pre-home inspection be done. In some cases, the listing agent will pay for this, but I look at this as if I'm buying a car and it has the 125-point mechanical check. It's nice to look at a house that's pre-inspected as well. We have covered this, I think, in the last couple podcasts.
Yeah, okay, so I understand where
include all the documents, everything you have. Let the listing agent decide which is going to be included and which isn't, but it's better to supply it at the point of listing than playing detective looking for this stuff afterwards, because what you're going to get, and I had this 3 days ago, yes, we're in Arizona, we've got those documents, but they're in PEI in Grand River, so we can't get to them, and that's real helpful.
Yeah, and another thing too, as a seller, you're meeting with your realtor, you're starting the process to prepare your property for sale. I agree. If you have a survey, if you have a plot plan, deed, these are, the deed the agent can technically find.
We can grab a lot of this
cases.
stuff online, but why search for it if they can just give it to us?
Yes, or at least reconcile and making sure that what they have, there wasn't no extra agreement that unfortunately maybe the province didn't register or something, or they have a later, because I've seen errors as well on the registry. So it is really good to have everything that you have available to you and in your possession. Provide that, the list of improvements. If you had a home inspection done, even if it was 10 years or so ago, if you were able to if you have it printed, great. And if you don't, send it
Well,
to your...
10 years might be a little long.
No, but it's still curious as to what kind of deficiencies were found, because if they haven't repaired them, they're going to resurface, and it could even be in a worse state. And it's nice as a listing agent to be able to give the best advice to your seller to get ahead of these things. They may have not read it or had full intentions on, oh, okay, I'm going to have that fixed. And then life gets busy, things happen. They can get easily missed. It's better to be ahead of everything and anything you possibly can to avoid any surprises, which at the end of the day, what does that end up translating into? More money in the seller's pocket because you are better prepared.
And a quicker closing. Let me ask you a question. A lot of people are using Bing Maps, Google. There's a number of other both satellite and ground photos that you can bring up now. Let's just say, for instance, that my house is on Google Maps, and when you drive by it, it's on fire. Okay?
I haven't encountered that, but oh my.
I had one house listed, and when you drove by it on Google Maps, they had this massive party. There must have been 20 vehicles on the front lawn, and there's kids jumping up and down on trampolines and 10 cases of beer there. And this is what their illustration of that house was on Google Maps. So my question is, can you phone Google and get them to black it out?
Yes.
You
You
can.
can. Yeah. I've seen interesting images. I haven't seen one where the fire trucks are outside, but
Would be kind of funny.
yeah, and not anything I would have thought of.
I just thought of that now. We're going to cover another subject. You can tell me if you want to get into this. Being young with no credit, TFSAs, RRSPs, and first-time homebuyer programs.
Okay, I think we can get that covered.
Then
It shouldn't
cover
take
it.
too long.
Let's try to do it under 20 seconds.
So the one thing, what is worse than bad credit?
No credit.
Having no credit.
Can you have a 0 credit score?
I don't know.
For those people that aren't familiar with credit scores, they're kept by credit bureaus. There's a standard that's basically been adapted across North America and Canada and the US. Oddly enough, it goes from 0 to 900. I don't know why it doesn't go to 1,000. The equation they use is top secret. You can get sort of ideas as to how they come up with this number. But essentially, the higher the number, the better you are. And if you're over 800, you're a unicorn. You're gold. 700's very good. There's all kinds of stuff on Google. You can Google this. But if you have no credit, it basically makes it very difficult to get a mortgage when we're talking about real estate.
Absolutely. So you should be, and it really should be taught in high school. I actually, one of my
Oh, we're not
clients...
going to go down the failing educational system
No,
road.
that's not what I'm not turning this into a negative. I have a client who is a school teacher, and we got into such a great conversation, and I just think teachers have such a golden opportunity to prepare the next generation. But I think he's an amazing teacher, and he is writing he just wants a short little clip within his curriculum, his content, to make sure that the next generation coming up is better prepared, which is educating them on, obviously, hopefully they have some RESP, but if they don't, when's the best time? Yesterday, but today's just as well. Get into investments, understand at the very least to get the process started what TFSAs are, RRSPs, first-time homebuyer savings plan and program. These are things to help while they're being educated on this, or you as a listener is being educated on this. Be mindful of your credit score and what your financial report looks like. Are you allowing phone bills, your cell phone bill, to be paid late time after time, because that's going to impact it? Do you have a credit card, do you have one or do you not have one? Is it maxed out? I know an individual, they are a professional without disclosing, and they had one credit card that they just thought they were going to keep as a simple, this is where I'm going to do my online purchases. They had a low credit limit on it because they didn't want it to be hit with, some of these scams that are going on. So it was always maxed out at $500, let's say. And therefore, she couldn't understand why her credit score was so low and she couldn't get it up. And she ended up discovering and realizing it was this $500 credit card that she had that was always maxed out. So her credit utilization looked really bad.
Because it should be down around 20 to 30% of the line.
Correct. And so these little things. So if you do get a credit card and you're the younger generation and you are looking to become a first-time home buyer, even if you do have a $500, because I know it's not easy to get this when you get started, try to make sure you don't owe any more than $200, or as quick as you are using your credit card, you have the cash in your bank account that you're able to make that payment. So at the end of the month, your credit card always seems to be just balanced out in zero.
The biggest thing is just to keep an eye on it, because it used to be in the old days that this information was hard to come by. Today, you can subscribe to, for free, Credit Karma. You can go on Equifax. You can request your credit score. I notice pretty well all the credit card companies now, if you use, and I'm not going to say this is them exactly, but RBC, TD, BMO, now they're offering your credit report or score as part of your credit card services. And they also offer, and this plays differently in mortgages without getting into a big spiel about this, but you can also increase your credit line, but then that's going to play against your GDS and TDS as well, as far as what credit is available. If they find out that you're buying a house for $300,000 and you get $500,000 in credit lines, they're going to look at all or some of that available credit as potential debt, and they don't want to see that either. So if you are going to extend your credit lines, don't be ridiculous.
Yeah, so the point of this is be aware, and it is something that, again, if you never thought of it, what is your credit score? That is where we start with. Find out what it is, and depending on where you fall, and like you'd said, Michael, it's 0 to 900, and in each, $100 bracket and that, they have little...
Each 100 bracket.
100-point bracket. They will have some little message. This is excellent. This is great. This is good.
You suck.
So be aware of it. Start, if you haven't already and are not aware, this is your information. This is something that is important for you to know and may actually make the difference in whether you are able to get into that first-time home and get started with building equity.
And if you're like Patty, you're on there 5 to 6 times a day checking your score to see if it's changed.
No, I do not.
You can actually, if you subscribe to the Equifax monthly service, which is around $10 to $12, I know you're a member, I'm a member, you can actually set it up. So if your score goes up or down, whatever predefined number you have it set for, it will notify you.
Yes, and Credit Karma does it once a week, and it will send you off a notification that says your credit score has been updated.
On to looking at houses in Ontario. So
wonderful.
I'm looking at real estate in the Burlington, Oakville area, Hamilton, and I noticed these certain homes that are really old, 50, 60, 80 years old, look like they're brand new and they've all been fully renovated. And I thought to myself, these are flips. So people are buying these houses and they're flipping them out. But then I thought, what's the age demographic? Because these houses are fairly expensive. And I'm thinking, I'll let you answer. What do you think they are? Why, when I'm looking at a 60-year-old house, it looks like it's out of House and Garden magazine. There's something wrong with this equation.
And it's
an estate.
Oh, okay.
It's an estate. So they've either died, and one of them actually had a picture of a chalk drawing
Michael.
on the living room carpet, which is how I figured this out. Now, they didn't. But they're estates. So the person's died, moved into an old age home, saw all the relatives looking to cash in on grandma and grandpa, go in there, do a big renovation. So now the house doesn't seem normal, because I'm thinking, like, people don't live like this. This house is just too clean. Landscaping's perfect. Living room's perfect. It's an estate.
In many cases, yes, it would be an estate. And like we had said again, coming full circle, lipstick on a pig, just to try to get maximum dollar. Meanwhile, the boiler furnace is 100 years old, and
the infrastructure could be on its way out, just like grandma. In
Michael.
fact, when I drove by on Google Earth here, Grandma was being delivered into the ambulance.
Okay. I do agree. Be mindful that they may look like something from Home and Gardens, and they may look really nice, which is why you should be getting in and viewing properties in person to get a real good feel. And not just a good feel, but a good smell. Because is this home musty in that? You can't smell those in pictures. Like, you need to get in and feel the home, smell the home, experience the home, check it out, because you don't know, even though it looks so pretty online. And the other question, Michael, we were discussing earlier this morning, are these AI generated photos to make it even look more polished and perfect? And they've just staged it with furniture. Be mindful.
The other little tip, and I mentioned this to you last week when you sent me a house, an overpriced one, and you said, "Oh, isn't this house wonderful?" And then I said, "Why is the distance between the top of the door and the ceiling about 2 inches?"
Yes, you did point out, and I didn't say it was a great. I just said, check this property out. And I do feel it's priced way too high. But you did have a very good eye in combing through the photos.
The ceilings were all low in the upper floors.
Well, and one had less of a gap above its door than another one inside. So it almost feels like a bit of a fun house once you really dissected the photos and started to go through it. But I was just combing through, again, just out of curiosity and trying to stay as on top of things and look what this price is, a property to watch out of curiosity, because it was a little inflated and they had it priced at perhaps an A-grade location, which we did discuss on a previous episode.
We're going to cover this next thing real quick. In our purchase and sale agreement, there's typically a bunch of standard paragraphs on what we refer to as a Schedule A, and one of them is the septic tank inspection clause. So basically, this clause says that the homeowners are to disclose or uncover the septic tank lid, and the purchaser will come along, pump it, inspect it, do whatever they want to do. The problem with this clause is, in the middle of winter, it may be difficult to dig up a septic tank lid. Or in one case, a couple weeks ago, I dealt with, they had a 60-gallon oil drum on top of the septic tank cover, and it was frozen solid. My suggestion is, if you do get this clause in the winter and it's a real nuisance because my home sellers were out of province, change the clause. Change the clause that the purchaser is responsible for everything. Because what we ran into is we contacted a half a dozen septic companies, and they all said the same thing. They said they're not interested in uncovering a septic tank lid unless they're getting the whole job.
And that, I was going to say, just reading what you had there, I wasn't sure what you were going to end up discussing on that, but that is where the problem lies. Not every septic system has a riser. The newer ones do, and in fact, they have 2. However, you've got one that's got a little bit older of a septic system. They have one lid. The lids are typically 2 feet by 2 feet, or at least 1.5 feet by 1.5 feet, and they are under the earth.
Well, they're usually under the frost line, so they could be 3-4 feet under the ground.
Absolutely. I know I experienced that on my property, where the owners had said it was about 1.5 feet, 2 feet down, and it turned out it was about 3 feet down, and it was under rocks and boulders. And try shoveling rocks and boulders.
Well, the interesting thing about that dig, because I did see it, is they went out of their way to put all the rocks and the boulders back after they uncovered it, rather than just spending $800, which I think is what it cost at the time, just to put a proper plastic lid access hole.
Yeah, which is what I did. I said, I'm never digging for this hole again. But be mindful of that. And you're absolutely...
We're moving along.
No, and be mindful of, and your key point is there, septic companies are not interested in only part of the job. Now, sure, they'd be okay being the ones that just have to come in and pump it or inspect it. But if you are the seller trying to secure somebody and the dirty part of the job is the unearthing of it, they're not interested in unearthing.
The whole job's probably dirty.
In our opinion, perhaps. But again, they would want the full job, not half. So I like what you said, Michael. Rewrite the clause.
50 amp electrical panels or any electrical panels that are below 100 amps, just keep in mind that they may be problematic when you have to deal with financing or insurance. Or if you want to think about it from an engineering standpoint, which is what I do, a 50 amp service is not going to afford heat pumps and EV chargers. An EV charger alone runs on typically a 50 or 60 amp breaker, of which you utilize 80% of the gross breakage size. So if you have a 50 amp breaker, you're using 40 amps. A 50 amp service is going to be problematic in a lot of things. If you're going to buy a house with one, get a price on replacing it with 100 or 200 amps because you're probably going to need it in today's age, particularly if you're getting into heat pumps, air conditioning, EV chargers. Anything else? Your hairdryer.
Well, just adding anything to it.
How many watts does your hairdryer suck up?
I have no idea. Why do you want to know about my hairdryer?
The neighbors told me their lights dim when you turn it on.
That's pretty funny. So now you're talking to my neighbor.
Let's talk about the next episode here, because we're getting long. Next episode. Oh, this is a super exciting one. Christian's going to love this one.
What's that?
Recreational and commercial properties not getting financing. Is it a good time to build in the winter? Delays in getting hold of a lawyer, and when should you? Realtor.ca saved searches. Bank asks if there's environmental studies. Paragon searches expiring. AI being used in videos. And we've got probably another 3 or 4.
That's a jam-packed episode.
That's a jam-packed episode, Patty. Tell us about Toolbox Tuesday, is it? And let's close her down.
For those of our listeners that are looking for where else can I go to get more information, like I mentioned at the beginning, we do have a Facebook group, which Michael had said, Moving to Prince Edward Island, spelled completely out from the Michael and Patty podcast is what it is. It is a great resource tool. We do have Toolbox Tuesdays, and every Tuesday there is a featured topic to really just educate. I don't just give 1 or 2 tips. I give you a toolbox full of tips and items that you should be aware and mindful of. So the one I'm going to mention this week is the one that was just released last Tuesday, which is the Green Efficiency Homes, what to know and possibly look for. So if this is something that's important to you, look us up on Facebook. And we will invite you to the group so that you can get a little bit more information.
Are these houses actually green?
No, they're not actually green. We appreciate each and every one of you, so thank you for listening to another episode of the Michael and Patty Show, otherwise known as MAPS, PEI's podcast that helps guide and navigate you through the buying and selling, and just a little bit of Prince Edward Island, too.
Happy winter! Thanks for listening. We hope to see you on the island if you're not, when it gets nice and green here. The real green, not like your greenhouses. Goodbye.
Sounds good. Have a great day.